No, just a quick comment. Again, Matt, a lot of that is, in my opinion, it's linguistics, because to say, I don't speak Japanese very well. It's not a quick. It's not a quick 3 syllables. You know what I'm saying? Like if you say "Nihongo ga skoshi wakarimasu," it's not something that it's not quick. So if you say more than if you say in a complete sentence in a different language, it may take a lot more. It may take a lot more syllables and words than it would in English.
We spend so much time speaking primarily to rap music, which is just simply one aspect of the hip hop culture. Are there any general questions about
Music.
the fashion aspect of it, the actual music production, just things that you encompass as hip hop culture? Yes, sir.
Yeah, I mean, it is going back to rap. Like you mentioned Dre and NWA. He was so clever about using samples, and of course, samples are used less because of copyright concerns. And I'm wondering about in Japan if probably that's one of the reasons you're hearing a lot of loops, because you're not going to. It's more expensive to license stuff for sampling. But I just wonder if anyone can address that about what's creative production kinds of things are being done in Japanese rap in terms of either using samples or just doing some crazy stuff on production end.
Well, a lot of the skilled producers in Japan are musicians first. So when they make music, when they make a hip hop beat, they still don't think of it as hip hop. They think of it as music. So they break out the keyboard, they break out the guitar, and then they do live sampling. Or they'll hear a record and they're like, I like that right there. They'll listen to that.
Okay.
And instead of just sampling it, they'll learn
Be
it.
inspired.
And then they'll transform it.
Same thing,
Same
yeah,
business,
because of
same thing.
copyright concern, partly.
But I mean, is there like, I honestly like listen to not one Japanese hip hop song in my entire life that I know of. So is there sampling like done? I mean, do people sample
Yes.
here in general?
Well, like
Yes.
the MPC was made here. Okay. It's Japanese.
People say, like on the underground scene, there's heavy sampling because that's still a root of hip hop, and the people on the underground respect that and they still use it. But when you get up into the label area, people use it less and less because the label says, we don't want to pay the money for that, so you better find something else.
I mean, like what
Thus,
we
all
heard
the
last
keyboard companies are making a mint, and you can tell exactly which keyboard they're using, which sample set, and
We probably use the same
I usually turn it off at that point.
What about Latin? Sorry.
I was just wondering, there's a British beatbox artist called Beardy Man. I don't know if anyone's...
That dude is dope.
Beardy Man, yeah. Well, he does a lot of stuff live now with a couple of Chaos pads and some other stuff in his setup just to sample himself, building tracks live. And he will take like really famous tracks, really famous references, and build them on the spot. So he's actually using what could be a sample. He gets sounds just perfect. But it's all his mouth, it's all live, so none of it is actually sampled. So something like that, would that be, if he tried to sell that in Japan, it would just be a cover, it wouldn't be an issue. So it's,
I don't think it would be an issue because that's his own voice.
yeah. So if you're building your own tracks with,
If you're building it, nobody can claim it.
yeah.
If you're sampling it, my theory is cut it fine. Cut it till it's yours.
Redo it.
Own it.
Yeah.
Derek, yes, sir.
Was like East Flatbush project, was that a big record here? Carried by, what is it, Judged by Six, where it sampled the Kodo, I think?
Big record.
Obviously not.
Yeah, exactly. I'll
You know
be
that
trying to
record,
say
yeah.
no, just because I don't know about this, maybe it wasn't big. But I would say it probably big in what sense? Big in what sense?
That was the first time I heard a Japanese instrument sampled. I was just curious to see if it made any sense.
Well, it definitely wasn't quote unquote big in the commercial sense. Was it big in an inspirational or influential sense? I would also be inclined to say, I'm inclined to believe it was not. Again, just because Caliph doesn't mean it wasn't the case. But I would be inclined to say no, it was not.
What about live hip hop? Is any like real like
Live bands.
live hip hop bands like
Yes.
you know?
The group that I mentioned earlier, their name is Suika, and they were one of the first Japanese hip hop bands that I heard. What's that? Loop. Maybe, but this group, like they used basic instruments, and the one thing that got me was their name means watermelon. They did a song about watermelon in the summertime. I couldn't understand Japanese well, but I knew what they were saying in that song because it was the emotion they put into it. It was the reality that they brought out of talking about watermelon in the summer, going to the beach, having family around, and without knowing the language well enough to get through Harajuku, I knew what they were talking about in that song. So that was a part of, like, wow, I want to do hip hop like this in Japan. Because they stood by themselves. There was nobody else that could, like, tell them anything else of what they were doing, because it was their life. So the hip hop bands in Japan,
Yeah, let's throw
they're on point when it comes to bands, because a lot of them do music, and when it comes to, all right, we're gonna sit down, we're gonna listen to a bunch of records and just record all the samples in our head, and when we start playing, that's what comes out till it's ours in the way that we put it down.
Came back from Canada, from studying abroad, and Canada has their own hip hop culture as well now. But what I found there was that when it comes to hip hop and rap music, people in Japan has their style to listen to hip hop in the States because they don't understand their language sometimes. So, for example, like in the States, Lil Wayne's like, oh, so cool rapper right now, but in Japan, I don't know, among young people, not that much, as I expected. So have you found, I don't know,
I'm glad to hear that from you.
like, have you found any different styles between Japanese people and people in the States to listen to hip hop music?
Oh yeah, yeah. Okay, I'm sorry. Yes, like so in terms of like what people like or what is popular.
How people, I don't know,
How
they
people
have
listen
their
to
own
it.
preference. Like when it comes to Japanese people, like among young people, they like good-looking rappers or hip hop artists.
I've noticed that.
Yeah.
the marketing
50 Cent
probably.
is popular because he
Yes.
looks good to people.
Yes, but
That's
people
it.
in the States, in Canada, I don't know, they think that lyrics is very important and their lifestyle.
Yeah, you know, and that's, I think, as I've said oftentimes about this country as a whole, outside of the hip hop, Japan is a very dichotomous place where certain things make sense and certain things do not make sense. So, for example, when I first came here about 9 years ago, I was teaching a student, and for whatever reason, she was a big fan of Redman. This is 1999, mind you. She was a big fan of Redman, but had no idea who Method Man or Wu-Tang was.
Whoa.
I'm like, how do you know who Redman is in
How do you
1999,
disconnect
but just not know who
Red
Method
and
Man
Meth?
is? And she was a big Jurassic 5 fan, big Jurassic 5 fan, but just did not know who in 1999 who like Wu-Tang Clan was, or you had a peripheral, a slight knowledge of NWA. And I'm like, how do you know J5 but not NWA? So it's really, I have yet to really